Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
The story of Korea is often painted in shades of ancient kingdoms, dynastic conflicts, and proud resistance to foreign domination. From the Goguryeo warriors to the Joseon philosophers, from Japanese colonization to modern industrial transformation, Korea's history has become a symbol of national resilience and unity. But nestled beneath this grand tapestry lies a lesser-known thread, one often brushed aside, distorted, or entirely silenced. It is the story of Black Koreans. It is the story of African and African-descended individuals and communities who, over centuries, have lived, worked, loved, and shaped life on the Korean peninsula. Their history is one of survival, cultural fusion, prejudice, pride, and quiet influence, a hidden narrative waiting to be unearthed. The idea of Black people in Korea may sound surprising to many. After all, the image of Korea presented through textbooks and media seldom reflects diversity. The dominant narrative promotes a homogeneous ethnic identity, often referred to as Danol Minjok, meaning one-race nation. But Korea's past is far more complex and cosmopolitan than this construct suggests. There were Africans in Korea long before the first African-American soldiers arrived during the Korean War. Some came as diplomats, others as sailors, traders, musicians, athletes, or even missionaries. Some arrived and stayed, married Koreans, had children, and became part of the society, while others were erased from memory, their traces buried under waves of nationalism and rigid ideas of ethnic purity. The roots of Black presence in Korea can be traced to the broader history of global contact. Maritime trade routes from the 16th century onwards began to connect distant regions of the world in ways that reshaped local societies. Although Korea remained more insular than its neighbors, China and Japan, there is evidence that foreign merchants, including Africans, found their way to Korean shores through indirect trade or contact via Portuguese, Dutch, and Chinese intermediaries. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to establish maritime routes to East Asia, and with them came African sailors, soldiers, and even slaves who often remained in port cities or integrated into local populations. While there is no direct documentation of Africans landing on Korean shores during the 16th century, Korean awareness of Black people is evidenced in paintings, texts, and royal court records that describe foreign envoys and dark-skinned visitors. One fascinating visual document from Korea's Joseon Dynasty is the 18th century painting known as Wawon, which depicts a procession of foreign envoys. Among the figures are individuals with dark skin, curly hair, and distinct African features, shown in traditional foreign garments. These paintings, while often idealized, were not fantasy. They reflected the diversity seen at court events, particularly during interactions with the Qing dynasty of China, whose tribute missions included envoys and servants of many ethnicities. Korea's proximity to China ensured that it had exposure to the broader world, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Black Africans, often employed in menial or ceremonial roles by European or Arab traders, became a visible part of the courtly spectacles in Beijing, and some may have traveled or been brought to Seoul through diplomatic retinues. With the arrival of Western imperialism in the 19th century, Korea's doors were slowly pried open. Western missionaries, some of whom were Black, arrived with the gospel, education, and medicine. One such trailblazer was Samuel R. Brown, a Black missionary whose work in Asia inspired future African-American educators and preachers. While Brown himself may not have set foot in Korea, his ideological descendants did. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, African-American missionaries, inspired by Pan-African solidarity and Christian evangelism, sought to uplift fellow people of color across the world. Their letters, diaries, and reports show a keen interest in Korea's plight under Japanese domination and a desire to support Korean independence movements. Though few African Americans permanently settled in Korea during this period, their presence helped establish ideological and spiritual bridges between the two oppressed peoples. It was the Korean War, 1950 to 1953, however, that significantly increased the visibility of Black individuals in Korea. Thousands of African American soldiers serve in the conflict, often under difficult and discriminatory conditions. Despite segregation in the U.S. military officially ending in 1948, racism remained rampant. Yet black soldiers built relationships with local communities, especially children, and left a deep impression on post-war Korean society. Stories of African American troops giving candy, building schools, or befriending villagers became part of local folklore in some areas. Others fathered children with Korean women, often resulting in mixed-race children who would later become known as Han-Hyul, a term for mixed-blood people that often carried stigma. The children of black soldiers and Korean women faced a harsh reality. Post-war Korean society, still deeply traditional and culturally homogeneous, viewed mixed-race children as shameful reminders of foreign domination and moral failure. These black Korean children were often abandoned by their mothers, ostracized by their peers, and denied basic rights and education. The U.S. government did little to support these children, and the Korean government saw them as a burden. Some were adopted abroad, particularly to the United States, where they were raised in African American families or mixed households. Others were left in orphanages, their fates unknown. One powerful testimony comes from the late 20th century, when a wave of documentaries and books began to explore the plight of mixed-race children born during and after the Korean War. Black Korean was often used as a derogatory label in a society obsessed with racial purity. One such individual, Insuni Kim In-soon, rose to prominence as a singer despite being born to an African American father and Korean mother. Her journey was marked by racism, bullying, and identity struggles, but also by resilience and pride. She eventually became a national treasure in Korea, using her voice not only for music but for advocacy. Today, Black Koreans are slowly gaining recognition, thanks in part to the global spotlight on multiculturalism and racial justice. As South Korea becomes more globally connected through pop culture, commerce, and migration, new generations of Black Koreans, born to African immigrants, African American military personnel, or diasporic families, are challenging old narratives. They are writers, actors, students, and influencers. They are creating space in a society that once denied their existence. They are connecting with African cultures, sharing their hybrid identities, and pushing Korean society to evolve. Despite these advances, many Black Koreans still grapple with racism, cultural alienation, and lack of representation. The government's multicultural initiatives often overlook Black experiences in favor of Chinese or Southeast Asian populations. And while some celebrities or public figures are celebrated, many ordinary Black Koreans still feel invisible. Their history remains largely unwritten in official texts, and their voices are often drowned out in the dominant discourse on Korean identity. The hidden history of Black Koreans is a mirror that reflects both the beauty and the contradictions of Korean society. It speaks to a past of global connections and hidden migrations. It tells of pain and resilience, rejection and belonging. It calls into question the myths of ethnic purity and challenges us to see Korea not as a cultural monolith, but as a living, breathing, evolving nation, one shaped by many hands and many hues. To fully embrace the story of Black Koreans is to reckon with the truth that no history is ever truly isolated. Like the waves that touch distant shores, the movements of people across oceans and continents leave behind footprints, sometimes faint, sometimes deep, but always real. And in the silence of forgotten stories, we find not emptiness, but the echoes of lives that mattered.